One issue on which Nigerians are in agreement is that their nation is going through a period of unprecedented security challenges. However, there is a lack of consciousness on how to deal with the problems. Hence, the problems are degenerating. But who should take the blame for this? This is the big question this morning, and we have a security expert, Dr. Lionel Rawlins, here to answer this question. A very good morning to you.
Bawani?
Adupe.
Madupe.
Caro, sir. Check what's the problem.
Let's go further.
We have a critical thing, a problem at our hands now this morning, and Nigerians are looking at it as if it's something that would never come to an end, and that is the problem of security. The challenges is enormous. Now, who is to be held responsible was the question there. Who do we hold responsible?
Well, it's a lot more complicated and complex than just pointing fingers. There's enough blame to go around from my perspective, from what I can see. Enough blame, let's say, from the parents who do not parent the child or children, to the teachers who do not teach, to the preachers who do not preach, to the politicians who do not govern, all the way up. But fundamentally, and without any doubt, who is responsible? Well, let me put it like this. Your Constitution, Section 12, clearly says that your government, the primary purpose of your government is for the safety, security, and welfare of its citizens. Mm-hmm. So if you want to blame anyone, and you want to look at it from a philosophical and fundamental perspective, the finger is pointed at your government, because their job is for the protection and the welfare and security of its people. And if the people are not being provided for, they feel the security is not in place, or their welfare is not being met, there's only one person you can go to, the government.
All right, now let me get your reaction on the attack at DSS headquarters yesterday in Abuja.
Right.
Now, many critics said, the 21 of these insurgents, or having that large number of insurgents kept in a particular place, in one place, isn't healthy. But just your general view on that attack, what do you make of that?
Well, there's something wrong, because the SSS is a very professional, well-organized group of men and professionals, I will say. And there's just too many funny things that you're hearing. So maybe we're not hearing the true story. But if what we're hearing is true, that many people in one holding cell is unheard of, especially dangerous men. And if you're going to hold that many people in one area, even if you confine them to that area, even if you broke them down in 10 and 10 and 10, it's still a dangerous proposition. Because these men are dangerous, and they don't care if they live or die, and the slightest opportunity they get, they're going to do something about it. So if that is the case, and is that what they did, I think that somebody is going to lose their job.
But is it right for one who is attending to detainees to go into a cell, a prison cell, with arms strapped around on the shoulder? Is it proper?
It's not proper. And again, this is what we are hearing. So I am not so sure that if it's true or not, because nowhere in the world would a man or woman who's feeding prisoners all are bearing arms. They do not have any weapons at all. You can't even have a knife for the exact reasons as what took place. Mm-hmm. Because if you go in and you have a gun or a weapon and you get overpowered, they're going to take that weapon and use it against others. And so for years now, that has not been a practice anywhere in the modern world. So I find it very strange that someone will be going in to feed people with a weapon strapped to his waist or in his pocket. So this is what I'm saying. If it is true, somebody will be looking for a job because they'll be fired. But then again, we are listening to information that we are hearing in the news, which may not be true. But I more or less, though, think that there might have been an inside operation. Somebody inside, internally, had some involvement in that. I think in the end, when the investigation is completed, it will show that somehow somebody inside had some kind of in the operation of these people being set free.
All right.
Okay, you know, with the level of violence in Nigeria, it keeps rising by the day. We had just over the weekend, there was an attack at a mall, still in Abuja, and then we have the DSS, you know, attack with huge budgetary for security, government's efforts, and other. Why do we still have, you know, increase in insurgency, increase in security problems in Nigeria?
Well, the problems here are very, very peculiar. It's not like any other place in the world. We do not have just, we have ethnic violence, we have communal violence, tribal violence, we have violence between the herdsmen and the farmers. We still have problems with kidnapping. We have problem in the Niger Delta still. And we haven't even touched on the Boko Haram insurgency that's taking place. So you see how your problems are multifaceted. And we haven't even spoken about robbery and rapes and trafficking of humans and oil theft and all. So you see all of the problems that you have here. And your forces are being diluted to fight these different areas of criminality and terror. But the biggest problem facing Nigeria now is the terrorism that's taking place and the insurgency. And that's where most of the resources should be put. And one of the things they're saying is that the people who are fighting the insurgency are not being given the proper resources to take the fight to the people, to the insurgents.
Well, what are these proper, you know, resources?
Well, weapons, support, food, training. And for example, weapons. You have to be able to give them the weapons to go and do what they have to do.
All right, let me hold you here, Doctor, a little bit, and we'll come back. These factors that you've identified, weapons,
training, food,
communications. We're going to look at them one after the other, and we explain them so that people will have more clarity on this. Now, we still have here AUN Security Coordinator, Dr. Lionel Rawlins, and looking at Nigerians' multifaceted security challenges. We'll be right back after this break to continue this discussion. Welcome back, and if you've just joined us, we're watching Safiya Breakfast show, and we're here with Dr. Lionel Rawlins, and the topic of discussion is who takes the blame for the security challenges in Nigeria. Now, Doctor, we're looking at some factors before the break, talking about food, welfare of the personnel, training, communication, and all this. These are strategic points that you need to put into consideration if these security agents will do their job more effective. Now, let's explain this one after the other, starting with, let's just say, the motivation from here.
Well, the motivation is the terrorists or the insurgents, they feel as if one of the things they say is that people in the military, that we fight to live. And the insurgents say that they live to die. So how could you fight somebody who says, I'm living to die? Because if they don't care if they live or they die, they're living to die. We want to live, they want to die. So that is a problem right there. Their motivation is stronger than our motivation because we don't want to die. They don't mind being killed. We mind being killed. So when you're fighting somebody with that kind of mentality, you have to have some certain strategies that to cope with it. Because if the insurgents don't care about whether they live or die, you have a soldier who has a wife and children, or a police who has wife and children and family, you see the thinking and the motivation.
Yes.
How do I go about it? I have to be cautious. They don't need to be cautious because they don't care. So that has affected the psyche of both sides. So I've fought against terrorists, and I know I see them run across minefields and get blown up. I see them run straight at you and you're firing, and they don't care if you shoot them. And so what do? You just keep shooting. Now, that's the motivation. The next one you talk about, what? It's arms?
Let's take arms, for instance.
You need to have the proper weapons to go up against these people. Now, if you do not have the proper weapons, it's not an excuse not to fight back or to drop your weapons and run. It just makes it a little bit more difficult. But if you have the proper arms and the proper weapons to go after the enemy, then the job will be cut in half. It'll be a lot easier. You don't have to work as hard as if you didn't have the proper weapons. And either given what the word on the street is, they do not have the kind of weapons to match what the insurgents have, which brings another problem. How are they getting their weapons? Who is funding them? These weapons are not cheap, they're very expensive. How are you getting them in? And how is a man who is wearing a pair of sandals and something just wrapped around his body able to walk around with a $250,000 or Naira weapon? So
how do they get training to handle these weapons?
Well, they're up in the woods, they're up in the mountains, so they can always fire weapons at will and get the practice in. But from what I believe, from what I've been told, that they have people who come through the border for Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. All of these people come to train them because they're now a part of the whole system of terrorism. They're part of that network of terror. So they will give them the training, show them how to use weapons, show them how to blow themselves up. And these are the things that, and sometimes they send their people away to get trained and come back. But it's easy. I mean, we're not that far from the Sahel. We're not that far from where all of this training can be taking place in the Sahara Desert. So it's pretty easy for them to do it. In terms of food, if one of the biggest strategies in warfare is to cut off supply lines. So if we cut off your food, your ammo, your communication and everything, you're walking around in the dark. You're not going to last too very long. So if you're not feeding your soldiers, or they're not being fed properly, and they don't have much to do, and they don't have much to fight with, it's a problem. So these are the resources, what I'm talking about, that they need. We need to give it to them. And then the country need to be behind them, because the soldiers are really out there fighting, and they don't want to be there. They don't want to die. Many people wouldn't want to be where they are, and yet we sometimes give them a hard time, and we say, the soldiers run away, they don't know what they're doing. We need to get behind them and support them, because they're doing a tough job that most of us wouldn't want to do.
Of course not. A soldier that is supposed to, be there to save you from trouble, and you have him running away from that same trouble, and you tend to wonder, who come to your aid now. But let's look at the issue of who to blame here. Over the weekend, we have President Goodluck Jonathan lashing out the northern governors, blaming them for the spat of violence in their region. And he blamed the governors for their failure to provide opportunities for citizens to readily acquire primary and secondary school education within this northern region. So should the governors be blamed? And earlier on, don't forget, you also mentioned the role of parents, teachers, politicians and preachers in all this. So who is to blame?
Well, the governors everybody, there's enough blame to go around, like I said. To an extent, the president is right about education, because whether or not the governor is given and providing them with education is a different story. But if you have a population of illiterate people, you cannot move forward, because when people like you die out, who's going to take over? And illiteracy will turn into criminality and criminal behavior sooner or later. Because if you can't read and you can't write, you can't think. And if you can't think, people are going to get you to do what they want you to do, which is commit crimes. However, fundamentally speaking, yes, he can say whatever he wants about the governors, but if the governors don't have the resources, whether it's financial or any other way, maybe from the federal government, to educate the people or to give the people the resources, then that's a problem, because then the governors could say, hey, you didn't give me anything, my hands are tied. But fundamentally speaking, it comes back to there's leadership, and your leader is the governor, is the government. If the government is not giving the people what they need and what they want to, then it is their fault. Because remember, your Section 12 of your Constitution says the primary duty of government is not to educate you, is not to do anything but to protect you, give you security and protect and your welfare. That's the primary purpose of government. And it doesn't matter if the government today changes and another person takes over, then that person too will be held responsible for whatever is happening. It's just the man at the top is always the one to blame.
All right, you said something that everyone has enough blame to, sorry, we have enough blames to go around. Everybody, that is, everyone is involved in all of this.
Absolutely.
Now, if this is the case now, and we have the president and the governors throwing back and forth blames at each other, should this be the thing that we should be dealing with now, or rather we should be more focused in finding solution to the problem at hand?
Absolutely correct. Very good question. You got to find solutions. What is happening between the federal government and the governors is like a husband and wife arguing and fighting about what's happening in the household, and the children are watching and watching. They don't know who to listen, who to believe, and that's exactly what's happening. The federal government is saying this about the governors, the governor is saying this about them, and we, the citizens, just looking back and forth, wonder who's right. It comes down, we have to find solutions. And if leave it up to me, I would say the federal government should rise above and say, we're taking responsibility. We didn't provide you the things we're supposed to provide you, but we'll put the necessary things in place to fix it, to secure you, to take care of your welfare and make you safe.
What about if it is the other way around? The federal government provides everything, but it is not managed properly to curtail these things?
A very good question, because many people have said that the federal government gives money to the states, and the states mismanage the money because the money end up in Paris or in the Caribbean, in the Bahamas, someplace, in some accounts in Switzerland. And that is true. If that is the case, then, let's start an investigation, because the government can open an investigation on anybody, and if they feel that they gave you money and you mismanage it, then start an investigation. And then make it public and transparent so everybody can see what was taken, how much money you received, how it was spent. Is auditing, it's not that difficult. If I gave you 10,000 naira and I asked you to spend it wisely, give me receipts and show me how you spend it, then I can see.
But you need to be enough. It should be clear enough just for people to see.
Clear and transparent. Yeah. And we will know who's stealing, who is not stealing.
Who's not stealing.
Yeah.
All right, if this is the case, now let me have you react to this quickly. We've said the government, and now we have the society. Now, what blame can the society share of this?
Well, the society has to take a certain portion of the blame, because we have sat back and watched all of this go on and did absolutely nothing. And we have to rise up, go meet our leaders, go meet our politicians, and demand that they do something. We don't do anything. We just sit back in our little restaurant and bars and we drink our beer, smoke whatever we smoke, and we accuse everyone. We need to take the government to task. Also, we see things and we don't say anything. Right. We notice strange behavior, we don't call the police. We see funny things happening in neighborhoods, we don't call the military. We need to be able to pass on information rather than sitting by and say, that's not my job, or I'm afraid of the police, I'm afraid of the military, I'm not going to say anything. If you're out there and you get information or no information about what's happening, call somebody. If you think you do not feel safe calling the police or the military, call the man at the top, call the big people, because they're the ones who will protect you.
Okay. All right, now you know where to channel your problems to.
He said the man at the top. Still.
Don't worry, I got it. Anyway, thank you very much, Lionel, for coming on the show.
Well, I'm going to say Madupe.
Yeah,
right.
That's the right word. Thank you as well.
Thank you very much.
All right, that was AUN Security Coordinator, Dr. Lionel Rawlins, talking on who to blame for the security challenges in Nigeria. Still to come on the show this morning is Success Clinic with Bolaji Adams and an update on the recent cholera outbreak in Jeddah with Sharif Al Hassan after the break.